Here are some of the biggest tips and tricks I wish I knew about early in Pokemon Legends ZA. Whether you're a beginner or somebody who wants to get a quick grip of its biggest mechanics, there are quite a few to talk about in this video, so let's begin. At number 1, say goodbye to permanently losing your Pokeballs because there's now a way to fully retrieve all of the ones that you've lost. And that is by simply talking to this guy that spawns in front of every single Pokemon Center all around the map. Now for some reason up until this point I literally lost or misplaced 20 whole Pokeballs, but this guy was more than able to retrieve all of them and give them right back into my inventory. In fact, I can even go ahead and grab one, throw right next to him, and as you can see, he literally retrieves them in real time and gives them back right away without having to wait. So this is going to help you a ton. Pay him a visit every now and then, and yes, this can apply to every single type of ball in the game, so also the more advanced ones that you're going to eventually unlock. And speaking of the Pokemon Centers, just like in some of the previous games, you may want to pay them a visit every now and then, especially when various members of your party are down, because it literally costs you nothing to heal your entire party right away. So give it a visit, especially before a big fight, but there are other benefits from these centers. They are also going to function as fast travel points, like literally every other location you visit. Plus, you can purchase consumables, including other Pokeballs that you also eventually get access to as you progress in the main story. Which brings us to number 3, and the game makes an important point on how strong ambushing is here, both at massively increasing your capturing rate, but also giving you the upper footing in combat. However, for getting almost guaranteed captures, at least early on, you will want to crouch and make sure to sneak behind your target first. Here, breaking the line of sight, staying behind cover, or just hiding in vegetation are some of your best friends. Once the target turns their back to you, this is when you want to throw your Pokeball. And you'll see how high your capturing rate right now will be by keeping an eye out for the up arrows to the right side of your target. Usually 4 arrows means almost guaranteed captures early on, but that doesn't mean it won't happen with 2 or less. It's just that the chances are significantly lower. Furthermore, your Pokeball type also matters, as you might have known by this point, but you can quickly cycle between the ones you currently have in real time by just holding L2 to aim at your target and then pressing R2 to load a ball in your hand. From this point on, you can just press left or right on the D-pad to cycle through all of your available options. This will also affect the arrow indicators for the capture rate to better show which option works best. Also, if you found this video useful up until this point, subscribing to the channel will help me a lot. And while we're on the subject, at number 4 we have to talk about the battle zones. This is the main way in which you're going to be progressing through the various ranks from Z all the way to A, and basically just getting better and better enemies to defeat. And one of the main ways to do so throughout the whole game will be via these battle zones that only spawn during the nighttime in random locations all across the city. You will see the affected area by the red outglow in those specific locations. Now there are a few ways in which you can skip directly to nighttime, one of which is by sleeping in your bed back at the hotel or waiting on a bench to pass the time to nighttime, but you can also just wait for the time to pass naturally. However, there is one big disclaimer I have here, and that is if you wait for the time to pass, if you are in the middle of a fight, the battle zone activation can literally happen while you are in the middle of that fight. Like for example, here I was about to defeat this enemy and all of a sudden it got absolutely resetted or respawned back to full HP. So just keep that in mind if you're doing it. In this case, once you do have the battle zone spawning, you can travel to it, and this is where you can have impromptu fights with other Pokemon trainers. And here are a few tips that I recommend to you. One of them is that you're going to want to use that ambushing mechanic just like how you did for capturing. In this case, sneak behind your target and try to get an attack in. This is going to massively increase the damage, oftentimes wiping your target in one single go, especially if you play against their resistances. But it's also going to let you immediately cast the same ability once again, so if the target is not completely downed, well, you can just cast it a second time immediately after, which is going to do the trick. However, you don't want to stop here. You will also want to constantly walk around with at least a few of these challenge cards active. You will pretty much find them scattered all across the battle zones, and the trainers you defeat will also give you at various times. And typically it only involves a very simple action like defeating enemies with a certain type of attack. However, my favorite is the one that asks you to instantly knock down an enemy at the battle start. So you can literally have multiples of the same copies stacked at one time. So when you perform that action, it's going to count all of the points that you get from the challenge cards, not just the few hundred from winning the duel itself. So that's one of the fastest ways to get points needed for the next challenge ticket. It doesn't stop here though, so when you defeat trainers, also talk to them, especially the ones with yellow tags, because you're going to get some really powerful bonuses from them. So this can include anything from getting more cards from them with more challenges, even getting extra coins, and most important, they can also fully heal your party. This is all going to be random, of course, but it's always worth checking those out. And once the nighttime is over, you are going to get an end screen here with all of the money you're going to be getting via all of the stuff that you've done during that battle zone. But in this case, you're going to get both the points from defeating the trainers, collecting coins via the zone, and also a modifier depending how many trainers you defeated. So the more you have, the bigger that modifier will be, which makes this one of the best money-making methods as well early on. And once you're done with this, you can now challenge your next trainer by progressing in the main story to raise your rank, like I said, from Z all the way to A. In this case, the trainers become progressively better, so you will want to have better and better Pokemon. Now moving on to number 5, you're going to want to stick to the rooftops as often as you can. That's literally one of the best spots to farm some of the most rare or high level Pokemon. And not only that, you will find tons of very useful resources here, including unique items like evolution stones. So not too long into the main campaign, like after the 5th or so story mission, so very early on, you will get access to quite a few of these locations, specifically either via regular ladders on different sides of the building or some of these yellow elevators. If you happen to stumble upon a red one, typically it means you need to progress at least a bit more into the main story until you unlock an appropriate nearby side mission that will eventually put that back into function. Once you are at the top, you're going to find a much higher abundance of Pokemon you can capture, even specimens you normally don't find on the ground level, on top of the fact that there are specific spawns that only appear in specific locations. There is going to be a video on the channel with some of the best early on such locations that you're going to want to check out. For that, totally look out for the video in the description or the pinned comment down below. But this was also the way I found some of the best unique items, like lots of evolution stones are either on rooftops or on the scaffolding adjacent to the buildings, but also on the higher levels. Plus many more, such as TMs, which are the skills you can teach to all of the Pokemon depending on their type, of course. So this is going to be dependent on it. Speaking of which, at number 6, we do have to talk about Mabel's research, and that's going to be another way to get these TMs, which again are the skills you can teach to the various Pokemon. They are not consumable, by the way, so they will permanently be in your inventory for you to teach to any other new specimen you capture. But in this case, one of the best ways to progress in the research and get more levels is by basically capturing everything. An XP/farming method will be dropping really soon on the channel, but in the meantime, I highly recommend capturing everything that you can, especially the low-level versions early on. You will see you get hundreds of points by just collecting a few of different types of Pokemon, like neutral, water, fire, and so on and so forth, which will progressively increase in the tiers, but also in the number of points you are given. And as you progress in Mabel's research, this is going to give you access to even more of these skills, and some of them are actually super powerful. Not just that, but also very strong items like much stronger Pokeballs will unlock this way. Which brings us to number 7, and piggybacking of the previous point, another reason you will want to progress in Mabel's research is because that also prevents higher level Pokemon from disobeying your orders. You can pretty much see what the minimal level threshold is before they start disobeying you right here from the main screen. So I believe the first threshold is about level 25, then 40, and so on and so forth. But as long as you complete that research, you are going to progressively increase that threshold so you can keep all of the ones below that level obeying your orders. Otherwise, it's going to absolutely suck in combat. Like, at least 1/3 of the commands you issue issue like attacks and other actions, yeah, they will completely ignore. You can see that from the messages popping up on the right side of the screen, and they will just sit there looking at you or just misbehaving, and you really don't want that because they still get the damage from the other Pokemon in battle, and you don't want to have them downed if they are your strongest option at that point, or even more so, get your character downed. So that is why pay attention to it and try to get as many of those as you can, capture as many as you possibly can, especially on rooftops. Now at number 8, let's talk a bit about evolution. There are some changes in Pokemon Legends EA compared to previously, but for the most part, it's going to pretty much be the same as it's always been. So you are going to level up naturally by just progressing in battles, bringing them in your party, and even the ones that don't participate will get a portion of that XP. Now, some of the Pokemon will level up quicker than others, like specifically grass types. Typically, they can do it already at level 8. Others at level 19 once they hit it, and so on and so forth. And in this case, you're going to see the arrow up icon appearing over here, over their icon in the main menu, point at which you're going to want to press A and press evolve if you want to bring it to the next level, or hold it off if you like its moveset or its looks. And there are definitely ones that cannot evolve at all without evolution stones. Like for example, Eevee early on will need an evolution stone of different type depending on which version of its evolution you want. But specifically besides this, you can just use these XP candies that you get either from defeating other Pokemon in battle or from completing side quests. A lot of them will actually give you different ones of different sizes, and even, let me tell you, the smallest ones can actually stack up a lot of XP. Like you can use just the small ones to immediately fast track a Pokemon to level 18, 19 at the very minimal and get at least its first evolution going. The other ones give way more, so by the M variant you already get like 5+ levels at the very least, at least early on. But besides this, we also have Mega Evolutions. This is going to be a stage beyond their maximum existing stage. So this is something that you can do with a specific accessory that the game gives you after about like the 9th or so story mission, and then you're going to need a specific catalyst. Pretty much every type of Pokemon or every class will have its own type of catalyst. So if you make that Pokemon hold it in its inventory, you can then use the R button in this case to make it Mega Evolve during the middle of the combat. This only works during the middle of combat and it's going to be temporary, but it's going to massively buff all of its abilities up until that circle fully depletes. But otherwise, you're just going to get a massive boost to everything. It gets a cool new form. A lot of them actually have some very impressive visuals here, and it's totally going to change things up for you as you get more Mega Pokemons that can be upgraded this way. Anyway, let's keep on going, and at number 9, another tip I have for you is to focus on the side missions. I'm gonna show you some of the best early on in a different video, but literally side missions are very useful in this game. You're going to find a lot of them giving you unique Pokemon you cannot get otherwise, or are super difficult to get from other sources, or you have to wait until much later. Plus many more resources, like you can just see how many we just got in the starting hours of the game, makes it totally worth it. And typically they only take like 5, maximum 10 minutes to complete. You get all of those benefits, you get extra money and even consumables. So I will say I absolutely love engaging with them because of the possible upsides of getting all of those cool rewards. And also on a similar note, at number 10, you're going to want to speak to as many NPCs as you can all across the city. Get close to them because usually, especially ones with the yellow text, they will have some important resources to give to you. Now, sometimes it can be some extra money, other times it can be some of those consumable or sellable resources. They can also oftentimes fully heal your whole party, which can help quite a bit. And on a few occasions, you will find some that give you specific powers that you cannot find otherwise. And some of them can be very strong. So it's always worth doing some exploration and finding things out into the city that others can give to you. Also, on a similar note, at number 11, you're going to want to grab everything that's not stuck to the ground, especially these Pokeballs. I want to break them down quickly for you. Typically, the ones on the ground/street level, they will just give you typical consumables like potions and food and other types of Pokeballs as well. The ones on the rooftops and scaffolding, especially the purple ones, they can give you more rare items you can sell at vendors for some really nice profits. And oftentimes the ones on rooftops will even give you special abilities, or like I said before, some of these evolution stones, and if you look at them you can't even tell them apart. It's pretty much like having regular Pokeballs that you find on the street level, so always pick those off anyway. Meanwhile, the yellow ones slash the gold variants can oftentimes give you abilities that you can then teach to your other companions and make them much stronger. Again, if you want to check which of these work with each of your current companions, when you hover over them you're going to see a check mark next to any possible affected Pokemon in your party right now. So blue check mark means it fits its elemental perfectly. White check mark means it's not going to fit the elemental, but it's still something you can teach to that Pokemon. Meanwhile, X obviously means you cannot teach it because of its element or its class, or just because it doesn't function with it. Which also brings us to number 13. You're going to oftentimes find a path or a route blocked by some of these obstacles. Well, if you just counter the element they are made out of, you can simply just open that path. So early on the game teaches you that stone break is useful to clear the stone that's blocking different paths, but you can also use water, for example, to clear out the muck, or the wind in this case over the spider webs to create a bridge. Ice attacks against the icicles in this case can create a frost bridge, or you can also use fire against brambles, but you will need obviously to have all of these types of elementals in your party. By the way, destroying a lot of these stone structures gives a ton of XP and extra resources, including some of those XP candies, so maybe make sure that you're breaking them often. Also at number 14, if one of your party pets is affected by any damage over time effect like a poison or confusion, if you recall them back into the Pokeball and then throw them back, a lot of them can actually be cleared this way if you want to just get away out of that effect without having to use an antidote or whatnot. Keep in mind, however, that you are going to sacrifice an attack basically, so once you call them there's going to be a small cooldown before you can use its attack right away. Typically the enemy can just squeeze in one more attack in that little downtime. However, keep in mind that there are various attacks such as Infestation that do not allow you to recall your Pokemon even if it's been affected by a damage over time effect. So in this case, you can also use that at your own advantage in case you fight an enemy and don't want it to switch back and forth between targets. And finally, to number 15, that's going to be all about paying attention to the messages that other companions in your league give you, especially after completing various objectives or points in the main story. Like, a lot of them will actually give you information such as there's a mega or a boss version of a Pokemon in this specific location, so paying attention to it may oftentimes lead to hints that can prove to be very useful, especially if you want to capture something really unique. And there's also a bonus one that I have. There's a lot of customization in this game. You will find many shops all across the map with many different types of styles and clothing and accessories. So this way you can make your character a little bit more unique to you, to your style. It's definitely worth it given how the starting clothing may not be some of the best looking after all. But this is pretty much it with the video. Again, if you enjoyed it at any point or found it useful, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and activate that notification bell. And I'll see you guys in the next video.